All right, let's tackle a huge subject today, the Day of Judgment. We're going to do that by taking a really deep, forensic dive into one single, incredibly powerful verse from the Quran. See, this one verse poses a profound theological question about God's knowledge and His justice, and it's something scholars have been wrestling with for centuries. So, if you're ready for a deep dive, let's get into it.
And here it is, Surah Al-Araf, verse 6. This is the centerpiece of our entire analysis today. And you can see it makes this stunning dual promise. On that day, God will question two groups, the nations who received the message and the very messengers who delivered that message. This one verse is basically the key that unlocks the entire framework of the divine judicial process.
Okay, so this immediately brings us to the central puzzle, right? The big question, a core belief in Islam, is that God is omniscient. He knows everything, past, present, future, inside and out. So, if He already knows everything that ever happened, why the need for questions? It seems like a paradox, and it's exactly what our source material is going to help us unpack.
So here's our roadmap for breaking this down. We'll start with the verse itself, then we'll look at the questioning of the nations, and then the questioning of the messengers. After that, we'll get into the weeds on what a divine question even is, then we'll connect this verse to other parts of the Quran, and finally, we'll land on the conclusion. It's all about witness and final proof.
So let's get right into it. We're going to start our analysis by looking super closely at this foundational text. This is where it all begins.
And just to be clear, we are not just summarizing. We are systematically going through the arguments presented right here, in this detailed exegesis. We're treating it like a primary source to really get to the bottom of this. This is a deep dive, so let's go.
Now, check this out, because this is where the language itself gives us a huge clue. The Arabic phrase here, la nasalana, isn't just a simple we will ask. The grammar, with the lam at the beginning and the emphasized noon at the end, that structure signifies the most intense level of confirmation possible. It's an oath. It means we will absolutely, positively, without a shadow of a doubt, ask. God is declaring it an absolute certainty.
So now that we feel the weight of that promise, let's turn to the first group mentioned in the verse, the questioning of the nations.
So, the first focus is on the recipients. That's all of humanity, across all of time, whoever received a divine message through a prophet. And this brings us right back to our main puzzle. What's the point of the interrogation if the judge already knows every single detail of the case?
And the source text is very clear on this. This is not a question to get information. Its purpose is twofold: reproach, or tabih, and confirmation, or takrir. Think of it like a scene in a courtroom drama. The lawyer asks a witness, "You were at the scene of the crime on Tuesday night, were you not?" The lawyer already knows the answer. The point is to make the witness say it, to get the fact on the record. That's what's happening here. God's question is designed to make people confess, to have them acknowledge, yes, the message came to us. Their own answer becomes Exhibit A in their trial.
But the verse doesn't end there. It adds another incredible layer to this divine courtroom, turning its attention to the second group.
And here's that second half of the emphatic promise. God will also question the messengers themselves, the prophets. Now think about that. Why would the prophets be questioned? It's a fascinating detail.
The analysis here clarifies this is not some kind of performance review for the prophets. It's a formal procedure. They're being asked to take the witness stand. The questions are straightforward. Did you deliver the message I gave you? And what was the answer you got from your people? See, the prophet's testimony isn't for God's benefit. He already knows. It's for the court. It serves as the primary, unshakable evidence against any nation that might try to deny they ever got the message in the first place. The prophets are the star witnesses for the prosecution.
This brings us to the absolute core of the whole argument. To solve this puzzle, we have to totally redefine what we even mean by a question when it's coming from God.
First, the source defines the kind of question we use every single day, the su'al istifhami, a question for information. When I ask, what time is it, it's because I don't know the time. The question is there to fill a gap in my knowledge. Simple, right?
And this is exactly the kind of question that is theologically impossible for God to ask. The Quran describes God's knowledge as absolute. He is Alim, the all-knowing, and Muhit, the all-encompassing, whose knowledge surrounds everything. So by definition, He has no gaps in His knowledge. Asking a question to learn something new is, for God, a logical impossibility.
So, the source introduces us to the correct category,
the su'al takriri or tabuchi. This is a question for confirmation or for reproach. It's a rhetorical tool used by a questioner who already has all the facts. The purpose isn't to learn, but to make the other party admit a truth, to establish a fact for everyone to see, or to rebuke them for their denial.
This table just lays it out perfectly. On the left, a question to learn something new that comes from a lack of knowledge, so it's impossible for God. On the right, a question to establish proof that comes from a position of full knowledge, which is precisely the method for the Day of Judgment. The takeaway here is huge. God doesn't ask to learn, he asks to judge.
Okay, so that's a pretty strong theory, but any good thesis needs evidence. The author of our source material doesn't just propose this, they show that this idea is consistent all across the Quran.
This is a classic principle of Quranic exegesis. You let the Quran explain itself. By connecting our verse in Al-A'raf to others, the author shows that this whole idea of a divine courtroom with testimony and evidence isn't a one-off thing. It's a recurring theme, a consistent framework for how divine justice works. Let's look at some examples.
Take a look at this powerful example. God asks Jesus if he told people to worship him. Now, obviously, God knows Jesus never said that. The question is a su'al takriri, a question for confirmation. It's asked in front of everyone who did deify Jesus, so that Jesus himself can testify against their claims and establish the truth for all to hear.
And here again, the messengers are asked what response they got. Their answer is so telling. They completely defer to God's perfect knowledge. They say, "We have no knowledge. You are the knower of the unseen." This act confirms their role isn't to inform God, but to simply bear witness as part of a process that he already fully controls.
And this is a perfect example of a su'al tobiki, a question of reproach. When God asks the polytheists, "Where are my partners?" he is not asking for directions. He is powerfully rebuking them, exposing the complete worthlessness of their idols and the absurdity of their claims on the one day where only his power matters.
So we've gone through all the pieces. What's the endgame here? What is the ultimate purpose of this elaborate, public process of questioning and testimony?
Our source lays out this clear judicial sequence. First, the nations are questioned. Then, many of them will try to lie or deny their actions. At that point, the messengers are called to the stand to testify, and their testimony refutes those denials. But the process isn't even over yet. There is one final, unarguable witness left to be called.
And this is the climax of the trial. The Quran states that a person's own body parts, their tongues, their hands, their feet, will be made to speak. They will bear witness against their owner, testifying to every single deed they committed. You can't argue with your own hands. This is the ultimate, irrefutable evidence.
And it all comes down to this one crucial concept, itmam al-hujjah. It means the completion of the proof. The entire point of this process is to construct a perfect, undeniable case so that on that day, justice is not only done, but it is seen to be done. No one will be able to claim they were judged unfairly, that their side of the story wasn't heard, or that they have an excuse. Every avenue of denial is systematically shut down, leaving only the manifest truth.
And so we end with this to think about, this detailed framework of a God who asks not to learn, but to establish truth, of prophets as witnesses, and of our own bodies as the final testifiers. It presents this incredibly profound vision of justice. It suggests that ultimate accountability isn't just a sentence handed down from on high. It's a truth that we are made to confront and acknowledge ourselves, leaving absolutely no room for doubt.